Good day to you, everybody. I'm here, welcoming you back to Space Harrier and Friends. I'd like to send a little shout out to Alicia for hooking me up with the pre-order of Dark Souls 3. Thank you ever so much. To Sonic Rose for this lovely Magic of Scheherazade perler. And to those who were interested in seeing a picture of our newest family member, well, here you go. Anywho, today we're going to be taking a look at a few of the stranger members of the Space Harrier family. Those family members we don't like to talk about too much. The ones with the extra toes and the eyes that never quite seem to be looking in the same direction? Yeah. And yet, they are family, all the same, and so they deserve their share of the spotlight alongside the other friends and family of Space Harrier. So, to begin with, let's sit down and have a little chat with Space Harrier for the Game Gear. Now, for those of you who never made the acquaintance, the Game Gear was Sega's far less successful answer to Nintendo's legendary Game Boy. It was released in 1990 in Japan and 1991 in most other parts of the world, so you can see by the copyright statement there that Space Harrier was a launch title for the old gear. And the Game Gear, in terms of hardware, was pretty much a Master System in a smaller case, plus an LCD screen, and there you go. Same CPU, same sound chip, and in a few respects this could have been advantageous for Sega when it came to launching their new portable. I'm sure it gave them a head start on sourcing components, and it meant that they most likely could get some games ready to go in a fairly short window of time, because it would be just like developing for the Master System, only optimized for a smaller screen. Also, it meant that the system had a ready-to-go library of games, in that there was a cartridge adapter that you could buy that would actually let you play Master System games directly on the Game Gear. Of course, they weren't formatted for that little LCD, but generally speaking, you could make do. On the downside, the Game Gear's battery life was frankly terrible. If you had one of these, I hope you also had a couple sets of decent rechargeables, because otherwise, you'd be throwing a fresh set of alkalines into this beast every half dozen hours or so. But really, the one thing that sealed the Game Gear's fate, above all other factors, was simply the fact that it went up against Nintendo's Tetris-powered juggernaut. The Game Boy really didn't have any successful competitors. I mean, if you think back, I'm sure there are a few of us who remember the Atari Lynx, but probably none of us who remember it too fondly. Anyway, one of the main reasons I wanted to bring up the similarities between the Game Gear and the Master System is to point out something you've probably already noticed, which is that this here Game Gear version of Space Harrier is extremely similar to the Master System version. I'm willing to bet they reused quite a bit of code. However, there are also a handful of differences that are pretty readily apparent from the beginning. First is that, in order to accommodate the smaller screen while keeping Harrier and the gang at a similar proportion, the whole playfield isn't always displayed on screen at any one time. Instead, as you move around, it scrolls to bring things into focus. Man, that was an early death. Second is something you may have spotted as I was starting the game, which was that there was a password option. Yeah, there is a password system for this game, despite the fact that it is shorter than the Master System and arcade versions of Space Harrier, at only 12 stages long. I'm guessing this is just a concession to portability, to let you play the game in smaller chunks instead of forcing you to complete it all in a single sitting. And finally, I'm sure you've picked up on the fact that while the enemies are behaviorally identical and somewhat similar in appearance, the sprites have all been redrawn. Yeah, some of them are obviously Mukadens or Tomos or what have you, and right here we have a boss that is obviously identical to Squilla. In fact, its name is Squill 2, but they've all been redrawn. And the stages also have different names. We started out in Dazur, and now we're in Stage 2 Cochin. So, that leads me to one of the biggest questions I have about the Game Gear version of Space Harrier, and that's, what exactly is this in story terms? Where does it sit on the timeline? Now, I grant, of course, that I am probably one of two people in the universe that actually gives a shit about the lore of the Space Harrier saga, the other potentially being Yu Suzuki, and I'm not even sure about him. But, yeah, this game has no intro. The ending's not going to be any help, as you'll see when we get there. What exactly is going on here? Is this just a reimagining of Space Harrier's original adventure? Is it a sequel? A prequel? There's no telling, and, I don't think there are any answers out there. Considering what a sort of official ROM hack this seems like compared to the Master System version, I'm guessing the people involved in the development probably didn't care too much and may not have even ever thought about it. But I hear you say. The manual for the Master System version of Space Harrier was very helpful in figuring out some of these mysteries. Surely the Game Gear manual might be able to serve a similar purpose. And I say that's very wise of you. However, I tried to track down an English-language copy of the manual for this game, but I wasn't able to turn one up on short notice. What I was able to track down was the manual for the Brazilian version, which was entirely in Portuguese. So I ran that through machine translation and found it to be very generic in terms of background information. You know, just join Space Harrier and blast off into this exciting adventure through Dragonland, fighting mysterious creatures that only want to have you for dinner, that kind of thing. Doesn't really say anything about where this all lies in the grand scheme of things. By the way, that reskin of Ghidarni we just fought was named Eros, and we are already on to our first tunnel stage, 3 instead of 4 this time. But anyway, to get back onto my train of thought, well, the manual just doesn't really say anything about what this might be in relation to any of the other games. And in Space Harrier 2, which we'll get to eventually, there's a little bit of a recap of the past of the Space Harrier saga, and it doesn't mention the Game Gear version at all. So, I'm guessing this just isn't really any form of canon. Again, not that anyone besides me actually cares about Space Harrier canon, but there you have it. Also, I really don't like the new look for the Bins Beans. They were cooler as the mini Epcot centers. Oh well, nothing to be done about that now. We'll have to destroy whatever has replaced the DOMs in this game. And they still look almost completely like DOMs, they just have some extra hoses around their heads. It is nice to see that the bonus stages have made it to the smaller screen intact. Of course, I suppose that's not terribly shocking, considering they didn't have to remake them too much just to squeeze them onto the Game Gear. Just a little of that cosmetic changing and the reframing into the scrolling screen. Yep, it's still riding on old Araya as he tanks all of the local plant life with his head. You know, in control of Harrier and Araya, we do more damage to Dragonland than we ever actually see the villains do. But then I suppose that doesn't exactly put Harrier in rare company as video game protagonists go. That was kind of the expected par for the course all the way up until Ultima 4, and even beyond Ultima 4, as this game itself is. That continues to be the case, and I don't think it'll ever stop. I do like games where, if you are a very destructive player, then it at least makes you kinda consider that, if not prohibit you from it entirely. But then again, sometimes it's fun to just go on a rampage and tear shit up too. Variety is the spice of life, they say. And on that note, it's kind of appropriate that this stage is titled Harm, because, well, we're doing plenty of it. I see the mammoths are all ready for a scuba holiday. I know it's supposed to be some sort of cyber enhancement, but from where I sit, they just look like they're off to do some snorkeling. Makes them even less convincing as a theoretical mastermind behind the invasion of Dragonland. Maybe they're just self-conscious about that single big eyeball of theirs. I actually do kinda like the look of the parking attendants in this game. Most of the enemy sprite redraws I'm not really a big fan of, especially the Bins Beans, but I do have to say the parking men look fairly good. On the other hand, the Tomos I think look even worse than the Bins Beans because they so obviously only bothered to redraw the frame of the sprite when they're all the way open. Otherwise, Yeah, they look exactly like the Tomos did in the Master System version of Space Harrier. You can still see the metallic outer shell and everything. Kinda lazy, guys. Stage 6 here is titled Bess, which puts me in the mind of battle rap icon Eli Porter. I'm the best, man. I did it. Oh, a little careless there. Taking a death from the lazily redrawn Tomos doesn't make me feel too good about myself either. Anyway, the bear-type things that have replaced the Idas in this game are also called Bess, and so the boss that incorporates a bunch of them swirling around a barbarian will also bear that name. Heh, also bear that name. I promise you that pun was not intended. Anywho, you might actually expect Ursine enemies to be a little more threatening than Moai heads, but I have to say the emotionless, staring face of the Ida does a lot more to skeeve me out than these guys ever could. And speak of the devil. Well, we will handle the best replacement for Ida the same way we handled the Idas in the original incarnations of the game, and then we will be on to Stage 7, Tapes. I love that name. The names in this game are generally silly compared to the original game. This one's just Tapes. Let's all just hang out and listen to some cool tapes. Seems to be pretty heavy on the DOMs, or whatever you'd call them, in this slightly redrawn incarnation. You know, something does strike me a little bit funny thinking about this. In so many respects, this is so close to the Master System version as to seem like, as I mentioned before, an official ROM hack, but the music's been redone. I mean, I know that's not a difference in the sound chip, because the sound chip is exactly the same as the one in the Master System. So, by rights, if they wanted to keep the music identical, they really could have done that without any complications or issues, I should think. So they deliberately remixed the music. And overall, it sounds alright, I think. And what do we got here? Oh, this is Mirage. The reskin of Sarpedon is just called Mirage in this game. Anyway, as I was saying, the redone music I think sounds okay for the most part, as Master System quality music goes. I do, however, kind of dislike the Game Gear version of Battlefield, which is the music you get for the bonus stages. That just sounds a little overly busy and junky to me. Well, a Sarpedon by any other name will still be pretty easy, and we are on to another bonus stage, Speak of the Devil once again. Yeah, all of that doodly-doodly in the background of the melody just doesn't do it for me. I realize there's probably a better term for that than doodly-doodly, but I was never a music major. And while there is a certain charm to plowing through stone columns, I have to say I really do miss ripping through all the skyscrapers like we did in the other version. Ah well, you can never have everything. Thank you, Araya. This is my stop. And on we go into Chike for the last third of the game. You see what I mean about the names in this one? They're just kind of wacky. Yeah, Dozer, Bess, Chike, and Tapes. That's the one that kills me above all, is Tapes. Well, that's embarrassing, but at least now we get to see how the Game Gear version handles game overs. Oh, it gives us an honest-to-God continue screen. Also, it boots us back to the beginning of the stage, which is a slight change. In the Master System version, just like the arcade version, you'd continue exactly where you dropped. But this one, it makes you do a little bit of checkpointing. Also, like the Master System version, we will be limited to 3 continues. When you use up your 3rd continue, you get a true game over, but at that time you will be given a password, so you can just drop your password in for a new set of continues. So all in all, it ends up being fairly easy. And guarding the end of Chike, we have a reskin of the Barbarian boss with the loopers surrounding it. You see the Barbarian no longer looks like a skull embedded in some sort of jellyfish and ends up looking kinda like a Gillman. BORCH. But that's not a name for a location, that's just an onomatopoeia. For yodeling groceries, I would say. Oh man, I shouldn't have had that last burrito. Oh god. BORCH! Alright, I'm being ridiculous. But what can I say, this game isn't giving me a whole lot to work with here. It's the Master System version, just a little bit uglier. I do have to say, though, that while the flickery bounding boxes are still present around the enemy sprites, they seem a little less severe in this game. Maybe it's just me getting reaccustomed to them, but I don't know, it looks like that to me. The graphics are a little bit cleaner. Oh damn it, you're making me continue again already. I suppose you are. Well, at least that means I get another chance to laugh at the title card for BORCH! You know what, perhaps that's the true value of the Game Gear version of Space Harrier. Overall, it doesn't really add anything more to the series than a portable version of the Master System version, more or less. And even then, you could just play the actual Master System port of the game using the cartridge adapter I previously discussed. But even if the Game Gear version of Space Harrier doesn't really have much of a reason to be, at least it does give us names like Tapes and BORCH. And at the end of the day, what more can we really expect from our interactive entertainment? I ask you. If are any of you still grappling with the question of whether games are art or not, I give to you Tapes and BORCH, and my face plowing into a stone column. Which is going to lead to our 3rd continue already. Well, thank heaven for the password system, I suppose. Oh, BORCH. As much as I enjoy your hilarious vomit-sounding name, we've got to stop meeting like this. I enjoy your name, but I tire of your columns. I tire of your sloppily resprited Tomos. I tire of you, BORCH, I tire of you. But oh well, I suppose every relationship has its ups and downs. Every relationship hits its rocky patches. And when all is said and done, BORCH, it's just you and me, a couple of crazy kids trying to make it through this crazy world together. Damn it, BORCH, how long can this go on? I can't keep this up forever. Well, that's one form of rebuttal. And on the far side of BORCH, we find a guy. Yes, the resprited Sarpedon may have gotten the relatively cool name of Mirage, but the resprited Valda is simply known as Guy. And our penultimate stage is going to be Natura 2. Every now and then you get a little sign of lack of imagination with this game. Like the resprite of Squilla was known as Squill 2, and now we have a retread of Natura known as Natura 2. Well, if nothing else, it cannot be said of being untrue to its roots, because just like the original Natura, it is chock full of DOMs. It is not at all natural, it is a haven for robots. But that's okay, even though some of the DOMs are kind of a headache as Space Harrier enemies go, especially the ones that keep zooming back and forth across the screen, slinging rockets at me. In a stage packed with DOMs and nothing but DOMs, you always know what you're gonna get. Man, that was a lot shorter than BORCH. Oh, Stanley, what have they done to you? Poor Stanley doesn't get to be a mothership anymore. It's like some sort of bug-eyed manta ray giving birth to robots. That is not my fetish. Interestingly, the last stage is still known as Absymbel. Apparently, no matter what path you take through Dragonland, all roads lead to Absymbel. And Eros is kind of a strange name for this boss, it occurs to me, because Eros is usually a name you would associate with sexy times. And a serpent body with creepy Medusa heads at either end is just not my idea of sexy times at all. That is not my fetish either. But hey, if that's what does it for you, then keep reaching for that rainbow. We do not kink shame here at I Played a Thing. All that aside, sexy or no, Eros is nothing more but G'Darny with a facelift, and can be handled precisely as such. One more pass ought to do it. There we go. Octopus. Now, we had a boss named Octopus in the original Space Harrier. It was one of those bosses that was really just a big group of regular enemies. Didn't look like octopi, though. And this boss doesn't look like an octopus either. Like I mentioned, it looks like a gillman. But never mind that. We're already on to Squill 2. When it comes to Squilla, its second verse, same as the first. Although I really didn't do very well on my first pass there at all. Much better. And Mirage, as we have established, is just the reskin of Sarpedon. So this shouldn't take long. Maybe just a little more resilient. I couldn't get rid of one of the heads there on the first pass, or the second, wow. Either it is a little more resilient, or my aim is unusually bad today. There we go. Ah, it's the Bess again. As per usual, we will just make sure we destroy the bottom layer. And then we can destroy the Barbarian, or Octopus as the case may be. Unless I get careless. And I am out of continues. Whatever shall we do? Well, we'll get a password is what we'll do. Fortunately, the passwords in this are just 4 letters, fairly easy to remember. AGEC. And it's a damn shame, but we don't actually get to enter our initials this time. Ah well. AG, You see? Ah, but there we see a limitation of the password system. It does not allow you to continue on stage 12. If you try to do that, you just get kicked on back to the beginning of stage 11, Natura 2. Well, we probably don't need to see all that again, so let me just hit the fast forward and I'll bring you back to where we left off. Now, who's the best? And judging by the appearance of the Flying Citadel, it would appear that just as things ended with Valda in the arcade and Master System games, things are going to end with Guy in this one. And that's just fine, because we can treat Guy just like we treated Valda, which means just like Squilla. Oh, and they've actually carried over Haya-O. Well, I suppose that's no great shock, considering Haya-O already existed in the Master System game, so they wouldn't really have to do a whole lot of work to adapt him. But still a nice touch. And also a little worrying, because I'm down to my last life, and I wouldn't really appreciate having to do this stage over again. Fortunately, Haya-O doesn't seem quite as evil with his fireballs in the Game Gear version as he was on the SMS, where even vigorous circling would sometimes get you whacked. What with the fireballs being very fast and the 8-bit incarnation of Harrier being a little on the slow side. But so far, I'm hanging on. Will these trends continue? With the loss of one Haya-O, I think it is safe to say that they will. Well, as usual, Oria's gonna show up to give us a lift home. Although this time it's playing the title screen music instead of the usual ending music, which is a bit odd. And I'm afraid that's all the ending we're gonna get. It is kinda nice to get a little heart from Harrier there, even if he looks like he's wielding a giant thumbtack. However, I do remain hopelessly cock-blocked with respect to figuring out where Game Gear Space Harrier lies in terms of the story or the overall timeline of the Harrier saga. Well, c'est la vie, it's what I expected. And as long as they're willing to send me off with a perfectly nice rendition of White Summer, I can't get too mad. And that's really about all she wrote for the Game Gear version of Space Harrier. But we're only at about a half hour and I can't send you home already, so now for something completely different. Your eyes do not deceive you, gentle viewer. This is Typing Space Harrier, a game that probably exists due to the surprising success of Typing of the Dead in the arcade in 1999 and on the Dreamcast in 2001. This, unfortunately, is not nearly as well made as Typing of the Dead. Matter of fact, a lot of it seems rather banged together, but the principle is more or less the same. Unfortunately, there's no English language version of this. It was a Japan-only release, and I was not able to get the Japanese text display working correctly on my Windows 8.1 desktop here. This game was last officially supported on Windows XP, but at least I can actually see what I have to type, which is the Romaji. The only thing I really can't see is the Japanese text. You saw when we saw our first Mukadense, it had me type Mukadense. That's pretty common for this game. Most of the time, when an enemy first appears, then it'll have you type that enemy's name in Romaji. And then for the rest of the appearances, it'll just be something randomly selected from a word bank. And every now and then you have bonus opportunities to type in one of the letters from the boss's name. This being stage 1, it's Squilla. Oh, there's Tomosu for the Tomoses. And so every now and then you've seen a letter just appear in the middle of the screen, one of the letters from Squilla, and in the lower right corner you can see me gradually filling in the letters of the boss's name. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that does for you. I think it may just bump your score, because I honestly don't have any documentation for this game, and whatever that actually does for you isn't super obvious. I'm assuming it's a good thing, though, because otherwise it wouldn't be a challenge placed in front of you to do it. But anyway, much like Typing of the Dead, this game will throw various words and phrases at you associated with enemies, and you just have to type them in before that red timer bar expires. And each time you successfully destroy an enemy that way, you'll see a letter rise up, starting with S rank, then A, B, C, etc. The better your typing speed, the better your rank, and the better your rank, the better your points. Simple as that. And now it's time to move on to boss number 1, who is our usual first boss, Squilla. And each boss in Typing Space Harrier has a little bit of a gimmick. In Squilla's case, it will just throw various combinations of Japanese words or proper names at you, and kind of run them together so that the end of one word is the beginning of the next, and it just strings them together in long strings of characters that way, so that you end up with a long snaking phrase to type in, much like Squilla's long snaking body. Most of them aren't that clever, but, you know. And just like that, Squilla is down, and we are on to stage 2, Giza, where the boss, as usual, is going to be Ida, as you can see in the lower right. If you haven't already figured it out, the stages of Typing Space Harrier do mirror the standard stages of regular old Space Harrier. And there we have our first Skegs and Idas, and so we have to type their name, just like we did with Mukadense and Tomos in the first stage. Now I hear a beeping there, and in the upper left corner there was an arrow flashing. You could just barely see it. Unfortunately, a little bit of the top of the screen is cut off. I really couldn't figure out any way of getting around that. Again, this is last officially supported as of Windows XP. I'm running it on Windows 8.1, and this game actually forces itself into 640 by 480 resolution anytime you run it, so this is a bit upscaled. You heard a couple of clunkier click sounds there. That was me typoing the name that I was supposed to be typing. There's no real penalty for that. You know, you don't lose points or die just for mistyping something. You just have to keep trying until you get it right. And as you've probably guessed, I don't have any actual control over Harrier's movement. He just kind of moves randomly around the screen as he flies through the stage, and the only thing I have to worry about is the actual typing. And now it's time for Ida. And for this boss, we just have a bunch of different words with similar sounding ends. Karoyaka, Hiyayaka, Yuriyaka, Sawayaka, and so on and so forth. Really, if you're a halfway decent typist, the vast majority of this game is pretty easy. Because these aren't English words that my brain can just kind of autocomplete, I'm typing slower than I usually do, and I'm still having no problems whatsoever. Now, you may have noticed that I said most of the game is pretty easy as long as you're a halfway decent typist. The big exceptions are the two-headed dragon bosses, Ghidarni and Sarpedon. And we're gonna have the first of those in this stage, and you'll see why that's a horrible thing when we get there. But in the meantime, every now and then we'll have opportunities to type in single characters there to hit loopers, and we just get some extra points for that. Doesn't do us any harm to miss them because they don't have timers, there's nothing to tick down to prevent us from dying. By the way, if you started typing a word and you want to back up and type something different, like if there's a boss name character that you want to type before it gets away, oh, there's our first canaries, then you can back out of the current thing you're typing with the escape key. It took me a while to figure that out, but it works a treat. Anywho, going along with Harrier's completely meaningless movements, his just automatic flying around, running into things doesn't actually have any significance. You'll see him flying through enemy projectiles and obstacles. Like that, he just plowed right through that mushroom. Then it doesn't actually mean anything. That's why I consider this game a little thrown together and not actually well made like Typing of the Dead. And now we get to Ghidarni, and all those extra lives I've built up are gonna go away really quickly. Reason being, Ghidarni and Sarpedon are quiz bosses. You have a question in Japanese that we can't see because I couldn't actually get Japanese text to display correctly. And even if I could get it to display correctly, I wouldn't actually be able to read the Japanese characters. And we have two options. And as you probably just figured out, typing in the wrong answer gets you killed. Now sometimes by looking at the two answers, you can kind of figure out what the question is from the Romaji.
Get ready.
But, you know, that's just a question of whether you recognize one word or the other, or recognize both of them and figure out which is more likely to be the answer to a question. That's not at all a consistent thing. Like these, I can't tell what the hell either of those is, so I just have to flip a coin and hope I get it right. Ori Bunoki Shotaifume. I don't know what those are. And so I guess wrongly.
Get ready.
So yeah, whenever I'm doing the Ghidarni or Sarpedon parts of this game, it ends up being very, very luck-based. Lucky in two aspects. Lucky in that I get questions I recognize, and if I don't get questions I recognize, or I should say, answers that I recognize, how lucky I am in guessing what the right answer is supposed to be. Like this run, I'm not getting any that I recognize. I'm just taking blind guesses on pretty much all of these. Ajiago, Manshugo. I'm not sure about Manshugo, but I think that first one in that last question was Asiago, like the cheese. That's just my guess. A lot of these are just the Japanese renderings of other languages' words in these quiz sections. And that's one thing that can sometimes help you make an educated guess. But here's another one where I just have no idea. And in the ones where I have no idea, I am not getting too lucky at flipping the coin there. Also, a lot of these will repeat. There's a limited bank of questions, so sometimes you can figure out the right answer just by them repeating. But it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to recognize Japanese words or Japanese renderings of words on a consistent basis. And it's not a super small bank. There are a fair number of questions that can potentially come up. Another of the reasons that I think this game is a little thrown together is look how much it's slowing down. Like, I have a decent video card here, not that I think the game cares, I think it just all does software rendering, and I have a very fast CPU, and look at how much it's slowing down on Ghidarni. Ah well, at least the actual typing recognition doesn't get affected too much by the slowdown. But regardless, I have run out of all my lives already on stage 3, and that's a game over. And you can continue in typing Space Harrier. Unlike the arcade game, it will not allow you to continue right where you were. You will have to return to the beginning of the stage that you were on. And there is a limited number of them. Now here we have a results screen that I don't particularly know how to read. Once again, I don't actually have the characters being displayed properly, and I wouldn't know what they meant if I did.
Welcome to the fantasy zone.
So we'll just do a continue. As I was saying there, we have a limited number of them. After 5 continues, we'll have to start the entire game over. But you don't need to see everything in this stage all over again. As a matter of fact, I have to redo this stage several times because it took me, I think, 3 continues to actually beat Ghidarni. So we are going to leap quite a bit ahead until I finally actually get past stage 3. Now I'll see you in a bit. Alright, we're not there yet, but I just wanted to pop back in and show you something that made me laugh. For that canary on the left side there, it had me type Chimpira, which means little prick, and is the term used to describe young punk Yakuza wannabes. Just something that struck me as funny to find in this game's word bank. Anyway, this is not the successful run against Ghidarni yet, so we're gonna pop back in a little while. Alright, after several more very unlucky failed attempts, we are finally at the time when I actually win against Ghidarni. This is another example of a question where I don't recognize the answers, so I just kinda have to take a blind stab at it. Which doesn't work out so well for me. Yeah, with all the shots you fire at Ghidarni, all the shots it fires back at you, and all its body segments, things get really, really slow here, and on a system as fast as mine, I really don't think that should be happening, so yeah, I don't think this game is exactly brilliantly coded. Why would it have to lock itself to 640 by 480 anyway? I mean, 2002 is over 10 years ago, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like we should have been past that point even in the early 2000s, as far as PC gaming goes. But for all that, I will have to say, I do find this pretty enjoyable. Okay, don't know what the question is, but Jakarta, that would be Jakarta. It was something I recognized, so I just went with it, and thankfully it was correct. So we've got Higashi no Yokozuna and Shi no Yokozuna here. I'm guessing those are the names of either sumo or sumo ranks. Now this one I should have gotten right. We had Burajuria and Sanparo, which would be Brasilia and Sao Paulo, so I'm guessing the question there was probably, what is the capital city of Brazil? Which would be Brasilia. But I recognized that just a tiny little bit too late. I typed in the wrong answer, died, and then immediately went, oh shit, I know what that was supposed to be. Oh well, followed it up with a lucky guess, and that makes up for it. And another lucky guess there, I have no idea what 28 or 51 Metoru is. This one, at least, I recognized what the answers are. We had the Yayoi historical period and the Jomon prehistorical period of Japan. Don't know what the question was, so I just went with Yayoi period, and luckily that was what I wanted. Moving on to Cecile, our boss is going to be Green Veril. And Veril is actually the rename for Dom in some of the later ports and adaptations of Space Harrier. I'm guessing for copyright reasons, they changed it from Dom to Veril. Just not to get in trouble with the Gundam people. Of course, the ticklish thing there is that they didn't change the appearance at all, so it still looks exactly like a Dom except for the faceplate type of area. Oh well, you tried, Sega. That's kind of how I feel about this game in general. You tried, Sega. And again, I do think this is actually pretty fun. Just the sights and sounds of Space Harrier with the little typing tests, but it's just very unpolished. They could have done so much to make it feel more credible just by not having you fly through enemy projectiles or obstacles. Like, if you typed something correctly, you would dodge incoming things, and if not, you would smack into them. But they don't do that. They just have you wander around randomly and smack right into projectiles, have things go right through you. And it just looks a little phony. Oh well. At least we still have bonus stages. Don't we, Uriah? Poink. And the way bonus stages work in Typing Space Harrier, you just have to type the same word over and over again as quickly as possible. In this case being kaki. Don't know what that is, but I can type it quickly, over and over again. And so bonus stages end up being a pretty easy way to rack up quite a lot of points, and by racking up quite a lot of points, it should get you at least a few extra lives. Typing Space Harrier is actually really generous when it comes to granting you extra lives for point earnings. See, that bonus stage there was enough to get me 2 extra lives alone. Not bad at all. And so, we slide right on into OLISIS. And I think pretty shortly we're going to be running into our first set of parking men for this particular incarnation of Space Harrier. There they are, Paco men. Now come on, Harrier, that was silly. You just dodged directly into that huge cloud of enemy projectiles. You can do better than that. That's probably my biggest beef with Typing Space Harrier, I think. Not to harp on this point, but the way it just doesn't matter whether you hit objects on screen or not. Like, the fact that if you miss a typing challenge, you don't get shot or anything, you just die for no apparent reason. Not that I'm looking for a tremendous suspension of belief in a typing version of Space Harrier, but I don't know, just make the effort, I guess. That's all I'm really asking for. Oh well. I suppose it's kind of a wonder that this game exists at all, so I probably shouldn't complain too much. Struggled a little with that one. Redo Barreru, that would be Red Veril. At least one thing that's kind of nice about the typing interface for this is that the red DOMs slash Verils aren't especially dangerous. Because really, they're just typing in a word just like anything else. I don't actually know what the gimmick is for this boss because I don't recognize the words. Oh well. The rollies were not anything especially interesting in Standard Space Harrier, so why should Typing Space Harrier be any different? I can't remember if the game actually pays any attention to the mammoths or not on this stage. We'll find out in a moment, I suppose. Nope, they're just obstacles. You don't get to type in mammoths or anything. Black Veril. Yeah, so you know the mammoths aren't important when Typing Space Harrier doesn't even give you an opportunity to blow some of them up even for extra points. I do kind of wish I could see what's hidden in the title bar there, just to see what that arrow is pointing at, but... You know, with the game hard setting its resolution and, fun stuff like that, I really couldn't find a way to make any more of this visible. In fact, Bandicam, which is the software I usually use for my in-computer video capturing, as opposed to external sources, Bandicam couldn't even tell that this was a window that it was supposed to be capturing from. I had to just tell it to capture full screen. So yeah, in pretty much every technical respect, typing Space Harrier feels a little bit banged together. I know, I'm harping again. What can I tell you, it's just something that really jumps out at me about this game. And yet, I continue to like it. Bare Bare, Eperon, Desan, Wikidashi, Pikaichi... Yeah, I don't know what the gimmick is for this one either. Any of the ones that I can't recognize, if you know what the story is for those, like if you have some Japanese knowledge and can enlighten us, I would actually really appreciate hearing from you in the comments or message me or whatever. One thing I do really kind of like about what they did with this is the sound effects. Typing in the words and seeing your projectiles just kind of stream out along with that very conspicuous clicking sound. It feels very crunchy, it feels very nice. And I like that quality about it. And there's a good clunking sound for your typos too. So without even looking at the letters disappearing, you can tell just by ear if you've typed something wrong, like right away. It really kind of jumps out at you. I do kind of wonder what the thought process was behind this. Like, Typing of the Dead was a surprising success. Certainly surprising from my perspective, and I can't help but think Sega probably didn't expect it to be as much of a cult hit as it was. But while I can understand, oh shit, Typing of the Dead did pretty well, so let's make some more Typing Tutor kind of adaptations of our games, I wonder what made them think Space Harrier. Not that I mind. I mean, it probably is my favorite Sega property, but I don't know. Renkon, Ninjin, Tamanegi, Nasu, Daikon, that's a radish, Kabocha, Kabetsu, that's cabbage, and vegetarian, okay, so Sierra's gimmick is it's all vegetable words, I guess. Didn't recognize all of them, but cabbage, daikon, and vegetarian, those all seem to point to a certain theme. Go on, lower the ceiling. You can do it, Typing Space Harrier, good job. One thing I like about the tunnel stages in this is that you can always be prepared for when the bonus letters pop up for the boss names, because it'll be every time there's a wave of Bins Beans. And since the waves of Bins Beans are placed just the way they would be in the regular game, you can always be ready for the bonus letters to pop up. Assuming a certain familiarity with the original game, but that's something I have no short supply of. And just one more to go, I just need that L. As long as I can bang out these Mukadents in time for the Bins Beans. That'll do. Now the Gold Varel, or the Shielded Dom as I called it, was a very tricky sort of risk and reward situation in the original game. Was that Portugal? I think that was, what, Luxembourg? Guatemala? Laos? Sri Lanka? Okay, so this is countries. There's Canada. Didn't recognize that one, though. That must be Uruguay. Yemen. But yeah, as I was saying, the sort of game of chicken that fight is in the original game, they didn't really do anything to adapt that. You just type in the words as quickly as possible, same as usual, and you'll blow up the boss. I kind of think that's a missed opportunity. Like, they could have made it so you had to finish typing in the word just as the shield goes down. But again, there's a lot about this game that I think was kind of a shovel out the door for a quick buck. I have no idea what it originally cost, but as long as it was a cheap game, I think it would have been worth it. Because once again, for all that I complain about typing Space Harrier, I do think it's enjoyable. It's just that I think it could have been enjoyable and polished, and I would have been all the happier. Oh, come on, I've already filled in all of the boss name. How long does this stage have to be? Running out of things to talk about here. Shiken, Shuchu, Bozoku... Rojin, I think that means an old person? Umeboshi is a pickled plum? Yeah, no idea what I'm looking at here. The typing was pretty bad there too. Lots of C's. And oh shit. This is PARMS, stage 11, and as we can see in the lower right, that means Sarpedon. So this is gonna be another quiz boss. Just like Adarni. Hopefully I will not burn through too many of the nice stockpile of lives I've built up, because at the end of all this we are going to have to do Absimbel, same as we normally would. And Absimbel means another run through both Ghidarni and Sarpedon in the same stage, so I want to have a very nice stockpile of lives saved up for that. If I run completely out of lives in Absimbel and have to continue... Oh, Dobuita. Familiar one for any Shenmue fans. But as I was saying, if I burn through my stockpile of lives and if I run out in Absimbel and have to continue, getting through a stage that has both Ghidarni and Sarpedon on 4 lives, that is a bad situation. Like, if I have to continue during Absimbel, it could just all be over. Oh, Tetsujin, that means like Iron Man, right? Guess that would be appropriate for a robot. Zombie. It didn't show up this particular playthrough, but where it said zombie there, I think in a previous playthrough I once had Frankenstein. I think it's about that time. Yep. Unfortunately, it's time for that quiz show where the answers matter, but I can't see the questions. Waratepon o warai son sadondes? Not a clue. Shit. Is not this a good beginning?
Get ready.
Yeah, Sarpedon's a little glitchy too, visually. He kind of slips under his shadow like that from time to time. Peppa Kebu? Nope, don't know what this one is. So we'll try Peppa, and fortunately it's right. Shapu? Is that Sharp? Oh, it's the wrong answer. Nihon Denki... Sounds like it might be a company name.
Get ready.
So maybe Sharp like the electronics manufacturer? Don't really know. Again, if any of you can recognize what these are supposed to be when I don't... Oh, a repeat. Lucky break for me. Tamorino Sangurasu... Oh, couldn't tell what that one was, and I paid the price.
Get ready.
Still, we're getting our hits in. We're getting our hits in. It's just not an endless string of failures. We're at least getting some here. Chipan Keiji, Stoka Keiji, no idea whatsoever.
Get ready.
And yes, I know my pronunciation is most likely terrible. Just doing my best here. Kairu, that's a frog, and Hamusta, hamster. So is it a frog or a hamster? I chose frog, and I chose poorly.
Get ready.
I'd feel really dumb if the question there was which of these is furry, or which is a mammal, or which is an amphibian. Taigazu... Tigers? Dorifutazu... Drifters? I guess it's drifters. Is that a sports team thing? No, there's a baseball team, the Hanshin Tigers, but I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Ayanto Banoki... Jantonio Inoba... No idea. You can probably guess this is a little bit frustrating when you're actually trying to make progress through the game. Nope, don't know this one either. Ah, thank you for your mercy, game. And it's a bonus stage again. The second bonus stage is more or less the same thing, just typing in the same word over and over again. But this time it'll throw you a few curveballs. Occasionally it'll change just a wee little bit. So it's gonna be Soniku, Sonic! He can really move. He's got an attitude. So it's just gonna be Soniku, 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 until... Oh, Tonic! Panic! Yep. Second verse, mostly the same as first, but it just tries and fake you out a little bit with a couple of similar words thrown into the string of the same one. Didn't catch me out that time, though. Well, that certainly helped refill the coffers a little bit after all the lives I lost to Sarpedon. And we've still got a ways to go yet, but we are gradually creeping closer and closer to the endgame. Creeping ever closer to Stage 18, Absimbo, which is where the rubber really meets the road, and we see if I can Iron Man through Godarni and Sarpedon in the same stage. I'm not having too much trouble, but I am noticing that the timer bars for the enemy typing challenges are starting to get shorter. They're not being as lenient with respect to giving me time to get my letters pounded out. I got more than a little mixed up there. Nuku Nuku Mofu. Oh, come on, Harrier. You were totally trying to fly into that missile. Okay, the Bakuhatsu part there is an explosion. I'm not sure about the rest. Oh, where was the S? Did I miss the S? Oh well, it's certainly not the end of the world, given that I don't actually know even what getting the whole boss's name is important for. And the gimmick for Octopus here is pretty obvious, just 3-letter combinations for things like USB, PCB, VHS, etc. And a suit. The final tunnel stage, and one that can be very intense and a little bit nerve-wracking in the regular game. But of course in this one, it's no big deal because it's just more typing. We gotta be a little quicker on the draw for the bonus letters because the Bins Bean waves come faster this time. But still, the fact that the bonus letters are always matched up with Bins Bean waves does mean they're nice and predictable. Oh, I missed the A somewhere, didn't I? I don't think I even saw it. This game engine is really struggling. Had some pretty hefty frame rate loss there. Zuo Kashi, Amagigoe, Chatsumi. Nope, I am not knowledgeable enough in things Japanese to figure out what the theme is for this boss fight. But no matter, I don't need to understand. All I need to do is be able to type in the Romaji. And I can do that. Well, wasabi I recognize. Not a fan of wasabi, but at least I know what it is. Alright, just 3 stages left to go, and I think this is when the typing to not get blown away by the enemies actually starts to become a little bit challenging. Of course, that depends on your typing skills, so your mileage will certainly vary, but I seem to remember in the last couple of stages it starts to get a little tight in time sometimes. I haven't seen anything I recognize so far with respect to this stage's typing challenges. Don't know that one either. That one I recognize, though. Mongolian Chop, like the pro wrestling move. And Valda, being a sprite swap of Squilla, is going to be just like Squilla in that it's a bunch of words run together into long strings. Watashi Nippon Daisuki desu. I do think the Squilla/Valda boss gimmick is one of the more clever ones, because you have these long snaking enemies, and So they give you long, snaking combinations of words and phrases. It's not particularly difficult or anything, it's just kind of cute. And Stanry this time is Stan Ray. So they really can't decide on how they want to render that name. I'll stick with Stanley. So I just like the idea that the mothership containing all the Dons has a name like Stanley. Quick massage. Quick massage? Is that one of the happy ending kinds? Or is my mind just in the gutter? Probably the latter. It spends a lot of time there. Do excuse my silence here, folks. I haven't really had a lot to comment on in this stage. It's Natura. It's got lots of robots. We've seen it before, and no doubt we will see its like again. Oh, right through the building. This really shouldn't bother me as much as it does. It just looks so wrong. Alright, Stan, where you at? Been here long enough. There you are, Stan, you old dog. How you been? Supercar Keshigomu? Supercar something? I don't know. But, I'm noticing something here. Poor old Stanley isn't even getting its boss music. Had a near one there. Couple of fairly tight ones. But this is gonna be a Stanley fight like any other Stanley fight, meaning it's not much of a fight. We can't actually do anything to the mothership. Oh well. Feel free to piss off anytime you want, Stan. There you go. And finally, we make our passage to Narc. Oh no, it's the Nox, man. I like Narc. It's a little bit of a quarter muncher, but a pretty decent game overall. As long as you got lots of busts in the early stages, you can build up a pretty healthy amount of extra lives. Wow, they hardly give you any time at all for that one. Puroresu Tenko. So that's pro wrestling something. Not sure about the Tenko part. Nerima Daikon. Are radishes from Nerima something special? Oh, it was a little delayed, but I just realized what that last one was. Proletariato. Proletariat. Well, objects from the background being thrown at us indicates it is just about time for Wee Wee Jumbo. And how this boss works exactly, I do not really understand. It seems like it's a 3-answer quiz at first, but I've never actually gotten one wrong here, so it doesn't actually seem to matter which one you type in. I've never taken a death here, never gotten anything that was recognized as a wrong answer. I've tried typing the middle one all the time, tried switching around randomly, and as long as I type it in correctly before the timer runs out, it always gets accepted. So I don't know if this is a quiz and I've just been really lucky, or if it's just a situation where you have a choice of which phrase you want to type in. If any of you can recognize what's going on here, please, I would very much welcome enlightenment on that subject, but all I can say is, I'm glad it's not a quiz, because one in which you had to correctly guess from 3 multiple choices, oh, I don't even want to think about how many lives I'd lose there. However, speaking of quizzes, we are back to G'Darni as our first battle of Absimbel. I remembered that one. I remembered that Rashomon was not the right answer. Now this is spaghetti something, and Italian something? Well, don't know what the question was, but spaghetti whatever was the right answer. No clue about this one. And indeed, I pay for my cluelessness, as I so often do, both in this game and in real life. Ebby, that's... Is that a shrimp? I think that might be shrimp. I don't remember for sure, though. No clue about this one. Bosu or Don? So, boss or Don? The answer was Don, so maybe that's like what you call a mafia boss? That one was just a lucky guess. Doing pretty well here. Another lucky guess. Hidari Jingoro or Tokugawa Iemitsu? Tokugawa Iemitsu, I guess, was
Get ready.
related to the Tokugawa shogunate. That's just a guess. I don't know my Japanese history super well or anything. Puroresu! Pro wrestling is always the answer. I said pro wrestling is always the answer. Wrestling, how could you fail me?
Ready.
I want that one to go to the judges. We had this one before, didn't we? Well, I'm glad I remembered it correctly. Alright, so we should be on relatively easy street until it's time for Sarpedon. Oh, that was Tokyo Disneyland, I think. Kamogashi Warudo something world. Are these like tourist attractions, maybe? Not recognizing any of the other ones. Nope, not picking up on any of the other ones, but I'm pretty sure Tokyo Disneyland was there. Alright, time for Squilla, which just means we'll have some more of those long strings. No big deal. The only problem I have with these is that I find them a little harder to read because there aren't any breaks between the words. But it's really not all that demanding. You have plenty of time. Don't have to be super fast to get in before the timer. Getting there, little by little. Well, that one was mercifully short. Alright, Ida is no big deal, it's just, yeah, that was the one with words with similar endings. Okunote, Yamanote, Nekonote, Kinote, Manote, and so on and so forth. I think that was Don Quixote. Well, Sarpedon already. I have a decent supply of lives, so hopefully this will not be too disastrous. Don't have any idea what the answer to this one should be, though. Not that one.
Get ready.
Wakagairu or Toshio Toru? No idea. Fortunately, luck was with me. TBS or NHK? Well, it's a Japanese game, so I went with NHK. Welcome to the NHK. It worked out for me. I remember that one before. That was the one with Sharp and Nihon Denki. Shonen Kingu Zokan Sande. Shonen King just sounded good. And, fortunately, it was what the game wanted. Not sure what the deal is with this one, but we'll luck out again. Abeshi! That's what dudes say when you blow up their heads in Fist of the North Star. Hidebu.
Get ready.
The other one was Kurakuen something. Something to do with Kurakuen Hall, maybe? Don't know. I should have gone with that one because it was the only one I recognized part of. Disneylando. Disneyland, or something else I don't recognize. Well, should have gone with the unfamiliar that time.
Get ready.
Definitely running down the life counter a bit, but Sarpedon is beginning to darken and turn red, so Junior Kick or Kokuden something punch. Oh, I didn't think that was going to end quite so quickly, but I'm not going to question it. Pudding, keki, so that was pudding, cake, mousse, something else, cookie. So this is all sweets. Softo kurimu, soft cream. Don't know what that actually is. That was candy. Chocoreto, some chocolate. Desserto. Dessert something. You're a very tasty guy, Sierra. And as usual, Valda is going to be our grand finale for Absinbel. I am sorry to say they do not include Haya-O in Typing Space Harrier. It would be pretty cool if they did, although given that there are two enemies in the Haya-O fight, they could have very easily turned that into a horribly difficult quiz, so perhaps it's just as well that I don't have to deal with that. And that's it. Well, I hope you're happy, Uriah. And to wear my fingers down to little stubs for the good of Dragonland. We don't get too much of an ending, but because it would probably all be in the Japanese that my computer couldn't display correctly anyway, I guess that's probably not too big of a deal. So yeah, Typing Space Harrier. Pretty unpolished. Seemed a little slapdash, probably just a quick cash in. But it's good fun. That was Yu Suzuki, so we're getting to type in the members of the staff this time. Doesn't seem to be getting us any points, so I don't know if there's anything special about this or if it's just for fun. If nothing else, we're getting a reasonably nice little remix of the Harrier Saga theme here. I don't know, I suppose it would have been a little bit of a pain in the ass to have Harrier actually move out of the way of projectiles and obstacles and such. William Word. In a game about typing in words, I guess that's a pretty appropriate name. But as I was saying, that might have been a little bit of a pain in the ass programming-wise. But, yeah, doesn't seem like it should be that hard, just a basic avoid kind of algorithm, and would have made the whole thing just seem a little more natural. Of course, it might have been much more difficult than I'm painting it to be, being as I am not a programmer or anything. And yes, I realize I'm harping on the same point again, but I don't know, am I wrong? I'm not wrong, I'm just an asshole. Seems like they had a non-trivial amount of people working on this. I don't know, Sierra. I think I liked you better when you were making me type delicious treats rather than staff members. But I know you don't always get to pick the work you do. Space Harrier. Well, Space Harrier, but I don't know if the rest was somebody's name or what. Something Sega AM2. I got the typing master power. Nice. And White Summer, you are always a welcome visitor. and the evaluation that I can't understand, but it's got lots of numbers. I can certainly say that for it, it's a lot of numbers. And now for finishing the game, we gain access to boss mode and stage select, where we can pick any particular stage or boss that we want to play through or fight, but other than that, that's about all there is to typing Space Harrier. Well, that took a while to chew through and made this episode run pretty long, but I hope it was worth a laugh or two, just for the fact that this game exists, if nothing else. Well, thank you for watching as always, folks. This is and I hope to see you again next episode, where there will be a complete lack of typing-oriented spin-offs or your money back. See you then. Today's feature-length dose of Space Harrier's particularly odd children is brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Charlie Dunst, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Johnny Millennium, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Craig Patterson, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo DePuzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Darren Chow, Sonic Rose, EX Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Argyle Jelly, Mechasaurus, DG Jono, Doug Russell, August Fortnight, and other very generous patrons. Thank you as always for watching, and to those of you who comment and subscribe, it is always appreciated, and I hope to see you again real soon. Till then, have a good one.